ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀਓ, ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਐਸਾ ਗੈਸਟ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਹਾਂ। ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਚੀਫ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਦੇ ਮੈਟਰੋਪੋਲੀਟਨ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦੇ ਸਬ ਕਰਤਾ ਧਾਤੇ ਮਾਰਕ ਸੌਂਡਰਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਪੁਲਿਸ ਚੀਫ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਇਨਵੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਹਾਂ to talk about the state of this beautiful city we call Toronto. So, Mr. Saunders, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. So, from us, the community, welcome, and it's an honor to be with you today.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
So tell us about how you became chief of police, or when you were 6 years old, 7 years old, you know, growing up, did you ever think you'd be a police officer, and especially the chief of probably the greatest city in Canada?
No, I mean, when I was 6 years old, I was more concerned about passing my math tests. So the thought of being in policing, it really didn't resonate with me when I was younger. It was more later on in life when I had to make some decisions with where I wanted to go, whether or not I was in the entertainment business, whether or not I would do that, or something more stable, something more solid, and something that offered a lot of uniqueness, not sitting behind a desk every day doing the same thing Monday to Friday. And so policing fit within that profile. And so I was fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of really good police officers who helped nurture me through my career. And I think people that advance aren't people that try to pull themselves to the top. They're people that are pushed by others. And I was lucky that I had a lot of people that were doing just that.
So tell us about you know, when the day you graduated from the police academy and you're wearing your uniform, that feeling or that accomplishment.
There's a lot of work in order to be a successful candidate at the end of the process, and it's daunting at the start because you have to learn so much about laws, provincial laws, federal laws. You have to learn. There's a lot of physical training involved, and it's a different game when you are in the classroom learning about things, and then all of a sudden you're in a uniform, in a police car, and you're going to a call, and you're actually dealing with people that are usually in their darkest states with something that has caused them to call you because they can't find solutions. And it's amazing how through training and listening you have the ability of resolving issues, and I think that's what we do 80% of the time, really, is resolve conflicts when people aren't getting along. That's 80% of policing. So when people think that it's the high-speed chases and all of these things, that's a very small aspect of what we do on a day-to-day basis. But we do over 2 million calls a year, so it shows you the magnitude of the volume of work that the Toronto police officer has compared to any other police agency in Canada.
How big is your force, the Metropolitan Toronto Police?
Right now we're at about 5,000, just over 5,000 uniform, and about 2,500 civilian members. So we're the largest municipal service in Canada, 4th largest in North America, and by volume, when you look at our city, we're the 4th largest city in North America, and we have proven to be the most diverse city in North America, and with that comes a lot of complexities that other people can tend to overlook, but that we haven't. So that diversity piece really becomes a challenge, because in order for us to be successful, we have to police everybody. We can't pick and choose our segments of society. And if we miss out on a segment, then what happens is we're leaving a gap towards community safety. So our hiring principles have to be that much more robust, have to have that much more range in order to reach out to all of the communities that we try to police.
You guys, I think we're the first police force to bring in the chaplaincy program. So when you talk about diversity, every base, color, creed, ethnicity, you've done a wonderful job. How has the so-called the budget restraints, have they sort of affected that growth that we're looking for, like in different areas? Like, I mean, We have baptized Sikhs now on the force. We have people from the LGBT community. We have people from even a new immigrant that comes to Canada. In 2 years they're on the police force, and that's unheard of anywhere.
Isn't it funny that we can have this conversation because it is a reality? And 20, 30 years ago, there's absolutely no way we could be talking about the points that you've just brought across. But it shows our growth and our development and our understanding of how important diversity is. And I think it's important in order to be successful, that diversity piece, it also works internally. So it's not just we hire because we're dealing with our external members. We're dealing with our internal members too. So when you get different cultures and beliefs and values sitting in a police car over a long period of hours, you get to learn so much more about how much in common we have. And so it's a unique opportunity that we have when we have such diversity to choose from.
Last year at Turban Up, it was a very successful event, and some of your officers were there. And those pictures, when they were like some of the female officers and the male officers from different backgrounds, when there was a turban put on top of them, those pictures and pictures of being at the LGBT parade, the Carabana parade, and other say St. Patrick's Day, these pictures are going viral right now on social media. So how does your department or even you yourself feel when these pictures are being portrayed as such a positive image around the world?
What I like with understanding policing today, the rules haven't changed. Sir Robert Peel's rules in 1829 still exist, but what is different is how we execute them, and embracing the public and working with the public really is our key to success, because when we do things, if we have the community agreeing with us, then our solutions have a lot more sustainability. So when we see pictures like that, it's not in any way, shape, or form posing. It's an understanding that we embrace culture. It's an understanding that it humanizes us, and it adds that extra element to help induce trust with our various communities, because we still have segments of the community that may have lack of trust, and I can understand that. It depends on what has influenced you in your lifetime with any type of issue with policing that could cause you to either like us or not like us. But I think when you see that we get away from that level of stoicness, we start to open up doors and opportunities for conversations. And when we have those conversations, we start to realize that we do have a lot of similarities.
Your force started doing community open houses, going into different community centers in different areas of the city. And how are they going? Like when you said opening up and being, creating that little bit of intimacy, taking away the stereotypes that some people might have, because they see that uniform?
Well, the town halls are good. They're interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, it offers a soundboard for people to come in and have that face-to-face conversation. It's uninterrupted. So it's not filtered through any system or bureaucracy. And so people will get up in the microphone and they'll put it right to you, which is good because then we have that opportunity of talking directly back. The key to successful policing is understanding what represents value in that particular community. It's not always about, like I said, the robberies and the things. It's a lot of things like parking. People parking in areas that are blocking people from coming out of their driveways. If it happens in a frequent manner, people get upset and angry about that thing. So value to them is having officers going in and making sure that vehicles are towed out of the way. So listening to what those small nuances are, I think have greater value than us trying to interpret what we think is valuable for the community. And so the town halls offer that. But when we went towards modernizing the police service, and the chair and I sat on a committee, the Transformational Task Force, and we knew that if we were going to be successful, we had to work right from day one, page one, with community. And so the task force consisted of members of the community as well as members of the police service. Traditionally what would happen is I'd be able to sit in a room with my brightest of police officers. We'd put a plan together, then we come out to the community and say, okay, this is what we've got, let's work together. But this was a much braver approach, bringing the community in right from day one, word one, and working together. And we went right across the city, and we had those various town halls, those community sessions, where we wanted to listen to what everybody thought and what should we do, because we want them to be part of the Toronto Police Service. And overwhelmingly, the message that came north, south, east, and west was we wanted to know our police officers better. A lot of times we see officers just driving through. We want to stop, we want to talk, we want to have that conversation with them. And so when you look at our report, it's very community-centric. It talks about neighborhood officers. It talks about being where the public needs us most. It talks about enhancing partnerships to create community safety. And it talks about dealing with complex needs of an urban city like Toronto. But the community-centric piece is what's going to be our success, because we now will have the opportunity of using neighborhood officers. And the neighborhood officers will get rid of one of the problems we had. And that was, we were doing it, but we're not doing it as well as we could. And what the community was saying loud and clear was, you bring someone into our community, we start to develop a relationship with them, and then he or she goes. And then somebody else comes in. May be better, may not be better, but we give it another try, and then he or she goes. And after a while, the community starts getting tired. And so with this new program, what we're doing is we're investing our officers that are neighborhood officers to be in communities for 3 years. And so that will give a long time to develop relationships, to solve the problems at a community level, and to look at what other partners within that neighborhood can help keep that particular segment of the community safe. And I think it's an exciting opportunity.
My other question is, getting a little hotter now.
Let's get hot.
Many new Canadians come to this country, and it's not just a new Canadian aspect, but it's an everyday struggle right now to control social media. Social media has creeped up with technology, the invention of technology, and how fast it's going. I know the police forces have their own departments now, to work on it. But it's things like cyberbullying, child, pornography. I mean, your force has done an amazing job at, tackling those and catching these criminals. I don't even want to get my blood boils.
Yeah.
How big of an issue is that, or how big of a problem is that now, and how is the force trying to control it?
It's a big issue, and I can tell you it is getting bigger, and there are problems. And I can tell you the biggest problem of the cyber entity is that it creates more invisible victims. Because remember, back in our day growing up, we would always say home is a safe place, right? As long as you can make it home, and once you're inside those doors and those doors are locked, you're safe. But that's changed now. You can still be victimized while you're in your house. So you can be victimized anywhere in today's environment. And so there are a couple of things. The enforcement piece is there. I've got officers that are aggressively investigating and doing what they need to make the apprehensions and bring those people before the courts. But we have to look at it from a victim reduction perspective as well too. So one of the key things is we have a lot of various programs that talks to it, that talks to how to safely navigate on websites, which talks about talking to the police. Because a lot of times what will happen is something may happen to you. You're a pretty big guy, so I mean, you got big shoulders, you can take it. It's not a big deal to you. But if somebody does something to you that victimizes you, you may be strong enough to deal with it. But if you don't do anything about it, what that does is that emboldens the person that tried to victimize you. And because there's no negative repercussions, then they go to the next person and the next person. So as they successfully go through one person, they'll continue to get better at what they're doing, and they will do it to more people. So the importance of we are all one. So when it happens to you, we talk about the reporting piece. The reporting piece is one of the most important components in reducing that. And so when we work those two together, and then going to schools, because you've got different platforms, different kids, different ages are on different websites, different environments. So you have to be able to have the right conversation with the right age group so that you can get the most maximum results out of it. And then on top of that, because of the cultural nuances, where some people are not comfortable with the police or feel embarrassed, we also try to educate, not just through town halls, but through churches and through any avenue that we can where we know that there'd be a large group of diverse people. And we try to get the messages through those means as well too. And when people realize they're not alone and we're able to have those conversations, they're less likely to feel embarrassed about reporting.
What do you find is the biggest challenge for the youth of today?
Well, the vast majority of our young men and women are incredibly smart, way smarter than we were at their age. But mind you, they've got a lot more pressures and a lot more issues. And I would say the vast majority of young men and women are going to do a fantastic job. They will learn from our mistakes, and they're going to make the city of Toronto, they're going to make the world a better place. But I would say that the pressures, as I stated before, the fact that home isn't necessarily as safe as it used to be back in our day, that is a growing issue. I would also say that we've got, when I talk about gun violence, it's a very small segment. And I think that if I could educate the public, the one message that I would say is that we are talking about a very small segment of the 2.4 million people that live in the city, a very small segment of young men and women that are using guns and that are in street gangs. But we need to work on investing in our neighborhoods more so that our kids have hope and opportunity. We have a lot of kids that don't have hope and will resort to criminal activity because they've got bad role models, so there's lack of mentorship. They're bored, there's nothing to do, therefore they by default will do whatever's available to them. And because there is money in the short game, it will entice people to get involved in criminal behavior. So we need to work in partnerships with different agencies from the preventative piece, not just the enforcement piece. The enforcement piece is when society has failed. But if we can, at the front end, invest in these communities and have those role models, those mentors, have those opportunities of helping our young men and women, I think that we've got a greater chance of being an even more safer city than we are right now.
You mentioned the word drug, and all of a sudden it triggered something in me, like it always does. I believe my personal view on something that's happening in Canada is the biggest, say, catastrophe or the biggest destruction of Canadian culture right now is the fentanyl crisis, the opioid thing. What's your analysis on this, and how can the government actually start helping the police forces? Because one, we have an opioid crisis, and then number two, we have this legalization of marijuana, which is even going to be put even a bigger strain on policing.
Yeah, well, you know, from a policing perspective, I've got to be very careful with my opinion. As chief, I don't have the luxury of offering opinions on issues. I just have to make sure that we're in compliance with keeping our communities safe and guided by law and governance systems. But, you know, the marijuana issue, it's here. We're in a democratic country, and our citizens have voted, and they've said this is what Canada wants. And so that is going to happen. And my hope is that since it is coming here, that it is regulated properly to minimize any type of community safety issues that may exist. And they've got an opportunity because it has been legalized in other states and other locations. So learning from past practices, what is the best Canadian prototype that is going to be out there? Because once you put it out there, it's very hard to make modifications. And once law is out there, it's because great thought has been given. And so to make those changes, it becomes a lot more complex. So, you know, that's the marijuana issue. But when we talk about fentanyl, the issue of harm reduction is what I'm interested in. From a policing perspective, there are the ripple effect occurrences, so people that do have the dependency will commit crimes to make money, could create violence if they're in the wrong state of mind, and things along those lines. But the harm reduction piece, all levels of government have to be involved in that. And I think that the health and welfare piece needs to be looked at. And then, of course, the deterrent factor from my perspective, if people are trafficking fentanyl, I think that there should be a loud and clear deterrent to that, because they're selling fentanyl for monetary gain,
Yeah.
but they're doing it at the expense of human lives. And so if you're willingly wanting to be getting into that game because you're greedy and you don't care that it's taking lives, then I think that we need to have some sort of deterrent factor in place for that. So it's the enforcement piece, but the harm reduction is the most important. What can we do as a community to help that reduction piece from taking place?
Be on a lighter side. Every day you wake up in the morning, you put that uniform on. What does it mean to you?
It means a lot, and I represent the 5,000 men and women that go out there each and every day, put their lives on the line to make a positive difference in those that they come in contact with. And I'm concerned about harm coming to them. They never know what happens when you open a door, and I've been there, but it's the streets are a bit meaner than they were back in my day, and so I have great concern over the well-being of my men and women that are out in the street, as well as my civilians too. And I've got a lot of civilians that are exposed to a lot of potential harm as well too. So it's wearing this and representing the entire service can somewhat be overwhelming, because you are concerned every time that phone goes off, and it's from certain people, and so I try my best to make sure that we have the proper training, the proper tools, and the proper resources to minimize that from happening.
Right behind us we have this flag of Canada.
150 years.
150 years.
Coming up, yep.
What does it mean to you?
Well, it means a lot. We came from England in 1967, so when we came, it was their 100th birthday, and I was in Montreal, and coming from England to Montreal, and let me tell you, that was a treat, completely different languages. But what I like about Canada is that most people that come here stay here. They understand that Canadians embrace inclusion, and we do it better than anybody else. And for those that have traveled, they can understand what I'm saying. It's one of those things, you can't see the forest from the trees. If you've never left Toronto, you won't appreciate it as much, but having been in a seat and done all of this traveling, and I see how we embrace inclusion better than anyone else in the world, that flag makes me proud.
The other flag is 10,000 strong. In your last closing remarks, what does that flag symbolize every day when you walk down the street, and then you come up the elevator, you see all your counterparts with you, you see your family, like one family you leave at home, and then when you see this family and you represent the greatest city in the world, Toronto.
Well, I'm just proud that I've had 34 years to be with this family, and I do believe that this is the best police service in North America. And I say that proudly because I've seen other examples of policing, and we are such a strong leader when it comes to policing. We're not afraid of innovation. We're not afraid of making changes and adapting to the times. And our city is safe, and a large portion of that is because of the men and women and my civilian staff that help make it safe, and they do it on a day-to-day basis, and that makes me proud.
Just like you make Chief us proud.
Thank you.
And you are a role model to millions of people.
Oh, thank you.
Your journey is, has been highly documented, and the community looks up to you, and especially the new Canadians that come into this community, and even worldwide that'll be watching this. So again, we would like to thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
ਅੰਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦਰਸ਼ਕੋ ਚੀਫ ਮਾਰਕ ਸੈਂਡਰਸ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਮੈਟਰੋ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚੀਫ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਰਤਾ ਧਰਤਾ ਹੈ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੰਗੇ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਟਾਈਮ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੋ ਅੰਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ